I thought, following on after last week's episode, that might be good to go into virtual reality. If you haven't checked out our last week's episode, we covered the election, which I assume you know why we're laughing about that. But just wanted to start with the Samsung Gear VR, and this week I was talking to someone who was explaining to me his experience using this thing, and this is like the everyday person experience. So you hear enough around of, the Samsung itself promoting it, or the tech heads and the tech nerds describing it, but you don't really, I never really, maybe, like I said, maybe it's a generational thing. I never really paid much attention to it. I couldn't see what the attraction was. It was when someone like him explained it to me, because he described a couple of scenarios that are programmed into the app. One was a horror theme, going into a haunted house with a wacky, horrific doll chasing him around, and another one was being on top of the Empire State Building in New York or something, and walking across a gantry, so you have that sort of vertigo effect. And he sort of enjoyed, the experience of it. He did say to me he wasn't sure, if he'd be doing it all the time, because it seemed more like a gimmick for 5 minutes and then maybe you might get bored with it. But you can imagine that the applications for this sort of thing could become very useful. And something we were saying before we got on, there's an entertainment aspect to it, obviously gaming and whatever. I could I could imagine like the first steps of the Star Trek holodeck emerging from this, where you could have a 3D interactive choose your own adventure type film experience and be immersed in it as well. Then you got like productivity type applications that you can do with this too. So I think it's for the first time I'm starting to see where this could work and be interesting. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm probably a little bit surprised that it's taken so long. I mean, Oculus has been with us now for 18 months.
Yeah.
So these products have been around. I mean, VR has been around for a long time, mainly in simulation, sort of high end, probably for the last 10 years. But now it's starting to come through, and consumers can go out and purchase the kits. But I know they're expensive, but I haven't seen a lot of them. But it's always interesting when you start to meet people you work with or know, and they're using these products. It means there's suddenly, I guess, a level of traction. I guess the question is how quickly will that happen? I think if we look back to video games, it'll be a similar scenario where over time, as the products get better and better, then obviously the applications improve, the experience improves, the price comes down, and before you know it, they just become an ordinary part of your entertainment or training or simulation sort of scenario. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's this idea that, if you look at the iPhone's trajectory, for example, it wasn't really good until the iPhone 4, and it didn't become great until the 5. So that's 4 or 5 generations in, and we're not quite there yet with the current set of products with VR. The Samsung Gear VR, the Google Cardboard, is making it more accessible. So it's putting it more into the hands of people to make it more affordable, which is, I think, one crucial step in this process, and also making it an add-on for your smartphone, which you're more than likely to have as well. And that's where I think that type of thing does gain traction. It's with people, but it has to be effortless and seamless, and it has to not have any hindrances attached to it. Like we were saying before we got on about, you still have to wear a headset. You can still feel the heaviness of it, all that sort of thing. And until they address that sort of thing, it won't really take off.
Yeah, that's right. And I also think that there's still a bit of naivety about how we're going to use them. I mean, there's all these big plans for what you will experience in virtual reality once you put this headset on, et cetera, et cetera. But the reality is maybe the technology is not quite there, and maybe also because they haven't been around and consumers particularly haven't used them a lot, there's been no real development in terms of the applications. And I think you might find some surprising uses, or people will actually invent ways they like them and use them and include them in their lives. Because if not, I can see them going the same way as 3D movies. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but potentially, if these headsets can't find a way into our lives so that they're useful, they won't work. And just a bit of a side note, I actually flew on a flight simulator during the week of the old kind, with levers, buttons, and a 2D sort of scenario in front of you. And I was actually wondering while I was doing that what it would be like if I had a headset on. How much different would it be? And so I think it would have been a very similar experience, to be quite honest. And I don't know if it would have necessarily been better wearing something or sitting in a cockpit. So these are the questions, and I think this is where now the developments that come in the second, third, fourth consumer generations you start to see some exciting products then. But I wouldn't have a clue what they're going to be yet.